We're going to discuss the experience of a spiritual person in contrast to most of the people in the world who are not spiritual, who really believe their life to be from birth to whatever years old and you die, or their body is real, their work life is ultimate. When you're spiritual, you're aligned with something simpler, kinder, and transcendent. And you will not discover the true experience of someone very spiritual unless it is you, or you have someone very close to you and very dear that you hold dear, and you've taken time to understand. There are some tens of millions, hundreds of millions of spiritual people in the world. We don't know. And it doesn't matter, because they're not in the world. They never for one moment believe their physical body, their work life, even their love life is their reality. There's something softer, kinder, simpler, more true, more ethereal that they're involved with every moment of their conscious existence. And it's not that they wouldn't express that to you and give that to you, they would in a moment, in a heartbeat. But you have to be respondent to it. You have to be in a very quiet, simple, human, spiritual place. Because God is always here. But God, He is a presence, an infinite presence of such grandeur and purity and simplicity and electrifying power and presence all at the same time. This world is, to a spiritual person, it's like putting the shell of a snail on your back and body, and you can't feel anything except where you walk on the sand, and that's life. To a spiritual person, it's horrible. When a spiritual person has downtime in their life for whatever grotesque reasons involving this world, it's 1,000 times more horrible than to the average person. At the same time, because they're spiritual, they're not complaining, they're aware of it, and they know the ride through it. It's just the indignity of it. Because every spiritual person gives up their personal dignity, their privacy, their humanity in favor of everything and anyone in their environment. If you're spiritual, there's a transcendent purity and simplicity, a warmth and embrace of the divine with you all day, every day, no matter what the circumstance. Say you have to shop, go to the market, you get like deep in your stance, and like if you're an athlete or whatever, and you're prepared to move in any direction, to defensive, offensive, whatever, and a spiritual person has so many different gifts, all available, and very few spiritual people have ever used more than 0.1% of their gifts. They're not wanted. That is, use them in this world. If you're spiritual, the world isn't here. Is this making sense so far? We talked about that radioactive device, the sun, being compressed like a mountain in the fistful of the sun, because it's compressed. And for a spiritual person, what I was getting at with this is you're aware of always that there's a power, a presence like 100 billion trillion suns, and you have to hold it in all the time. You're aware of it. You can do that thunderbolt with whatever, but you don't ever do it. You do it very rarely. But it's not like you're going to cause an earthquake, although you certainly can. I'm not going to go into that right now, but the point is, it has nothing to do with the physical world. You want to give this experience that you have within your heart and soul. It's experiential. A spiritual person can tell you they can sense that enormity of endless presence, that compressed substance within them, because they're not this body here and now. They're part of that always. And it's because people basically in the world are truly dead to God. It's a different world. It's like the Zen koan, where the Zen master asks the student such and such question, and the student will answer, and it has nothing to do, the words mean nothing. I was with my friend Reverend Shin on the mountaintop. We were founding the World Zen Center for Dr. Sho from Korea, and famous Zen master, and we're sitting there, and we were in a kitchen, we were building a fire, and there was a guy next to us named Gary Brown, who was just a normal person. You would think he's a buddy or whatever. And Reverend Shin, I didn't even know we were just there, and he was a Zen master. And to be that, you have to be truly, it's what Dr. Sho is, a truly revered, enlightened being, and you would have to be in another zone. The last thing you do to become a monk or to become a reverend for Dr. Sho was you would spend 11 months in the mountains in Korea alone. And it's not just that you eat somehow and you keep yourself alive for that time. You stay in a deep, deep reverential spiritual state. So I was just being helpful, and then we were sitting there, we just made the fire, and Reverend Shin just out of the blue said, looked at me and he said, "Robert, where is Gary Brown?" And I said, "He's not here." In other words, we were looking at Gary Brown. In that moment, I realized I'm not a moral person. So we were in a clean space. It was a different universe. That's one way of coming to the illumined experience of honoring God, of respecting God. And there are thousands of manners of doing that. You can climb the mountains, you can sit quietly. You can fall in love with someone so decent that all the hard and fastness of your life goes away, and you honor and respect that life. And illumination is that experience. You fall in love with eternity. I'd say God, but it's not, it's different than being in love with a person. So if I say I'm in love with God, it's not love with a person. It's a love that's trillions of oceans of love. And people in the world don't feel it. I feel that right now. The few spiritual people that I know right now experience that. Years ago it was much easier. It's a little more complicated today to communicate, to see someone directly, humanly, but it's, if I think of any of them, they're here, or any of the great, we call the great ones, the teachers, the arhats, the bodhisattvas, you feel everyone all the time. Beside your mom or a lost love, it's always present, it's always here. God is eternity. We are eternal beings. No one ever died, no one will ever die. And so when you step beyond the mirage of there being a world around us, and you're just very quiet, you'll pass through into eternity, what they call heaven. But you don't go somewhere when you die. That means your body and your life here is real, and then if you do it good, you'll go to God. That's so completely unspiritual. It doesn't even make sense to a spiritual person in their consciousness. And they're not going to negate your experience. They're going to listen to you if you say that's what you feel, and they're going to be with you. They want you to take you to that next step. And they'll wait quietly with all these gifts that we spoke of at the very beginning of this message. You can sit quietly and listen to people. You can inspire them. You have the gifts of healing. You can change reality, literally, for those you love. But 99% of a spiritual life is being around people that are so lost. And your heart, you just want to, there's a surge within you, you want to fill all the empty spaces. But you have to wait. And that's not difficult because you can. It just is. This world is the mistaken consciousness. If you step away from it, all the borders of your consciousness, of your body, of your psyche, of your emotions, of your heart, of your life. They're not there, this magical, courageous ingredient we have within us called faith. It's a direct connection to God. It's not you believe without knowing, you experience God. That's faith. And everything in your life changes, and you understand when there are pressures at you, or beings, or demonic influences. You understand it all, and it's very complex, but it's not to you if you're spiritual. I hope this is making sense so far. It's a big deal. There is a God. So if we practice meditation or relaxation, if you don't have that sense of divine providence with you, for me, having so much experience around things that are seemingly spiritual around the world, or religious, or dedicated to the arts, or whatever, I'm aware of that, how easy it is for a dark force to get. In other words, if you are practicing some sort of yoga or meditation without the sense of God, that's just peace, and you can feel the presence of out-of-body, in other words, not living body, beings with you, and they feel peaceful, and there's a certain pride with that, but it's delicate, and you feel like you're the great teacher, and you're simply feeling a dead guy that's dead, that's right on the other side. He's not, you know what I'm saying? Or they can be the presence of someone you honor as a teacher, but they're not illumined. Illumination is, there's a word again, but it's necessary, infinitely selfless. So when he said I said Gary Brown, he said, where's Gary Brown? Gary Brown's not here. We were into heightened, just a clarity. There was no doubt that Gary Brown wasn't there, and he didn't know that because we're discussing, he would just see it as a funny statement. We were in what's called the Pure Land in Buddhism. Like when I was in India, it was, spent many months praying for all the Tibetans being killed around me, and I was up in northern Indian mountain there. And I was aware there, like, was there someone when I was we ran a conference in Delhi, and someone said something about Shangri-La, and Shangri-La is there's another word for it, exists. There is and it's not in a valley, and you'll find, and what was that book called? Lost Horizon, was it? Yeah. And where they're looking for this place, Lost Horizon. Anyway, it'll come to me in a moment. But it's a spiritual place. So all the Tibetan Buddhists, they're my friends. We were there then. It wasn't that we went through the mountains to find this place. You see, that's the material consciousness. But we're there, and we're in Shangri-La. We're in Shangri-La now. This is heaven. If you don't know that, seek out one of these spiritual people that you truly trust. Study the lives of the saints or whoever. I remember there's a book called, anyway, there's many, the lives of the saints, and they're so contrite and they're so humble, it looks like their lives are so empty. But when they're an ascetic, it means that, it doesn't mean they don't eat or drink or love or have any affection. They're so pure. They're very, 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 very happy. You're not, if you're not spiritual. Oh, I have to give up this or that to be or eat. So no, you don't have to give anything up. You become unimaginably powerful. There's nothing you can't do or won't do that's spiritual. You're capable always. Your life is utterly different. You're aware of God always. God is aware of you always. And it's an infinitely pure, it's the only word that works in this context. There's so many realms, but you're involved with them now, always, today, tonight, last year. All those we love are with us forever. And we give ourselves to the dedication of helping others. When I was in the Marine Corps, I'm talking to my buddies here, like our fighters, and Gerber and Greg, and they just like to teach and to share their art with people. They look like tough guys, but they're not. They're the sweetest, kindest, two-legged tanks in town. But because they want to empower others to not be afraid, to feel okay in their own skin. And that's what spirituality is about, except you transcend the skin. And you have a very high art to share, to teach, to endeavor to promulgate throughout the whole world. Emotionally, you feel unsatisfied because no one really wants it. At the same time, that's okay. I have forever to give this to you. This is truly, truly, truly in the heart and soul of all spiritual people, because we're not lost. We never die. All the fanfare of the material life it's negligible to us. It's nothing. We're ready to share, to give our gifts, to teach, inspire, correct, redirect, coach, heal, adore, care for, support, in any means requisite for the moment, anyone at any time. We're not thinking about forgiveness or anything. If you don't forget, all the terms they use in religion is like, that doesn't make sense. If someone did something really raucous and you'd have to see them or not, you would know if they changed that moment, it'd be gone and go, oh, like a little puff of smoke, and you'd never think about it again. Even if they shot your dog, you know what I mean? Believe it or not, okay? And that's about as horrible a crime as imaginable, right? But I'm saying it's you change because the world isn't here. And as soon as someone gets it, oh, then we go on to the next case. Point is, a spiritual life, we're living in a very delicate yet very powerful fabric of existence. We're existent with the humanity and decency and simplicity and purity of our Father God, always. We can't even believe this. I can't believe it right now, but I always feel it and know it, but I can't even address it. And God's the same way, and yet God is God. There are these endless dimensions. So when you're spiritual, you can sit for an hour at choosing and just drift off. And it has nothing to do with anything in this world. If you're supposed to do or get something or have something and know something, that environment will appear in your life somehow. Maybe you walk down the street 2 years before, and then all of a sudden, oh, your mom, go down that street now, and whatever you need or have to know, or the person, it'll simply be there. This has never, 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 never not occurred in my life. And addressing this further, all people in the world know they have a destiny. They can be good, bad, or indifferent. In a spiritual life, we know our destiny is spiritual, but we can think of different times when we're a certain age when certain things happened or we changed inside. And every person, if you're very quietly, can listen to them. They'll know, when I was 20, I knew I was going to do this or that or the other, or have a certain love or a way of living. Everyone has these things. So if you can very quietly be with someone that's decent, and doesn't feel all the joy and ecstasy you feel as a spiritual presence, and quietly listen to them, let them get it out. And that's what spirituality is about. That's what prayer, reflection, contemplation are comprised of, these elements of our individuality that relate directly to God, and we're moving forward in space and time, but we might be doing that in our destiny as a spiritual being, because we're here to bless the whole world or end the whole world. Or we might not be a totally decent person, but we know our involvement with our family. We all think about it in different lives. We know we have certain relationships with people, good, better, and different. Everyone in the world has this trajectory because we're passing through this kaleidoscope of, for the spiritual person, a kaleidoscope of indifference. It doesn't care about your being here. It doesn't even know you're here. I hope this is making sense. There is a God, therefore, God being infinite kindness and grace and dignity and intelligence and power and presence. If we address God as God is, there are no questions or answers. There's a simplicity, there's a kindness, there's a truth, there's a wonder. It's beyond what is called genius in any and all areas. You see through everything. And Gary Brown is not here. There's nothing wrong with you. There's everything right with you. Spend an hour quietly at night, alone. And you'll know that that's the most important thing you will ever have to do. There is something called spirituality because there is God. Thank you. With that in mind, we're going to employ one of our many, there are so many of these gifts, abilities, whatever you'd call them, to quiet our senses. And we're going to use one, counting back from 100 to 90, and then at that point we're going to give ourselves permission to be spiritual. That simple, okay? And to know the rest of our life is chartered for us in the sense of divine grace moving through us, empowering us, answering every question, fulfilling every need. And that's just the way it's going to be. We're going to be there at 90, and all these different abilities we have are simply to remind us to not react to our own perception. And imagine how brave an act that is compared to any kind of warfare. To not react to your own perception, you'll be so quiet that the illusion of the world, it will disappear. It will dissipate, it will go up in spiritual flames. It's quite wonderful. Thank you. At 90, we're there. We're not reacting to our breathing, to our thoughts, to our perception, to sounds, to sights, colors, memories, dreams, reflections. We're not reacting to anything. And then we'll be in this place, and Gary Brown will not be there. It's just this presence of God alone with us, and we'll be glad all over at 90. Just the breathing. 100. 99. 98. 97. 96. This beauteous, soft, lighter than air presence fills us, and that's God. And the hard and fastness of the world disappears forever. At 90, we're illumined, no matter who approves or does not approve. And the other side of it will come at you forcefully to keep you off balance all the time, and it won't matter. And Gary Brown will have long ago disappeared. 95, 94, 93, 92, 91, 90. Thank you. It's just that simple. It's like sitting alone at night in your easy chair or your living room. You'll always expect God to be there. God will never, never, never not be there. God will never, never, never not be there from this moment on. God is God. The world is an illusion projected by something called Satan, which has no power. If you're very, very quiet, then the indecency, immorality, and the unkindness of the world and the violence of it you'll look right through it, you'll live right through it, under any conditions. I remember reading, you'll find so many writings about soldiers at war and combat and having all these transcendent, illumined experiences. I know I certainly did, and so if you can have it at war, which is the worst, but should never, 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 never happen. It's horrible beyond anyone's belief. But if you can have these experiences in the middle of that, and we've all the people here, we've all had these experiences in through the day-to-day drudgery or violent experiences or whatever. There is God, and if you are fortunate enough to just allow yourself to ingratiate yourself to the holy ones, you'll have, or we have, this illumined experience where eternity resides within our heart, within our soul, in every moment. And all of our memory banks of this world, they're kind of cleansed, and what's left is a subtle fabric that helps us and reminds us of the ones we love and care for, but all the pain and tragedy and hardness, fastness of our life is gone. I'm just thinking of a lot of buddies who died, who got hurt in violence, and they're all here, they're all my very simple, kind, human way, and they're laughing at me right now. Does that make sense? And from time to time, he speaks to us. And when he does, it's though we're the only person in the world. Because to God, we're the only person in the world. And when that happens, although it would be so momentary, because God is contrite, it's part of, there's something called the throne of grace. It's infinitely beyond heaven, which are endless waves of glory. They're golden like an ocean that's forever, and one wave after another unfolding in, and you are the waves. And yet you're the same person you are right now. Nothing's going to change. You're going to scrape the illusion off. You're getting the barnacles off your boat after the winter storm up on the shore there. And you just, once you get the barnacles, which are the conditioning of being in this world, which is what meditation, prayer, reflection, and contemplation are about, once you let go of your conditioned experience, you're just, we're all spiritual here, but you have to let go of this in order to be the clean and upright instrument that we're supposed to be. And we do this, we give our experience of God up, volunteer to be here, and we're conditioned from birth to this moment, and then we let go of the conditioning, and being here is what we volunteered for. We took a lot of stuff, we got in the ring with a champion, and we took it all, and then our coach said, that's all he's got. Oh, yeah, you know what I mean? Or trainer in the corner, then you go out and you win the fight. because that's all he's got. Satan has nothing, this force field. It's a being, but it's really nothing. You just look it in the eye and it's gone. The same way with Gary Brown, with Reverend Chin, it was like, we were in a clean place, it was forever, and it wasn't judging Gary, it was like, he was lost and he's lost forever. And it's not good, better, and different, it doesn't matter. We were in what's called, again, the Pure Land. We're in the Pure Land. This is Shangri-La. There is a God. We honor God our Father. Above and apart from everything else, our life will not just work, but we'll realize our destiny after all these lives, after all the trauma of it for so many decent people. And that's why we'll do it. Someone asked me about illumination recently, and I couldn't explain to the person. It's simply what should I do? Like be a better person. Be kinder, more true, strip away any of the hard and fastness of the fabric of your heart and soul and mind and body, and don't want or need anything. Clean up anything in your past, in your mind. It doesn't, and it's not, you did something bad, it's, you let go of it and you realize it and you feel very contrite and humble towards those you may have not recognized. I've certainly met people that were like so holy, and I realized because I had to do this battle all the time, and at the time I gave them everything I possibly could or could have or understand or know to make their lives work, but it wasn't enough, because the only thing that's going to work in this world at this time is the whole thing, the whole bowl of wax is melted down to nothing and gone. In other words, the conditioned world itself. And that to me is what illumination spirituality is about, that this world system doesn't exist anymore. There is a God. We are God's senses in this fabric of seeming reality that doesn't exist. And again, if we delve into this with anyone of true faith or spirituality in our environment, we all have someone like that, and we'll find we have so much to share on the spiritual level, but people do not communicate on that level, or they want something about it, or they're doing it through their device, and maybe there's some other agency at play. But when you're very quiet, Gary Brown isn't here. And when you live a life without Gary Brown, when you free your mind, when you cleanse the doors of perception, everything appears as it is, infinite. That presence is you. You have that power. You are a bright and shining light in a darkened world at a darkened time. This world will be gone in a flash. It's like the Buddha said, think of your lifetime as a bubble in a stream or a flash of lightning in the sky. It's no more than that. If you're quiet, and I've done this with so many people throughout my life, and sit back and have them count back from 100 to 90, at which point you're going to be very quiet, and you're going to relate to me. And what I do is I put myself in a completely quiet state, and I'm completely aware of them, listening to them, and there's not a hairline of judgment or concern. And they'll relate all their lives or their problems in this life. And when you do that, and you don't react to it, at the end you acknowledge it. You trust their soul to unwind their problems. They'll feel cleansed and healed and whole. I remember one person, I let them relate all these horrible things in their life, and it was about 40 minutes, and it kept going, and it was truly horrible. And at the end they stood up and crossed the room from me in my living room. I didn't react to that, anything. You know, as you train yourself to simply be aware of them, empathetically, but or just Thank you, thank you. You're not react to hairline, they'll shut up. And they'll feel, and you never bring it up again, and this person simply get up and said, thank you, Robert. I feel clean. And this was a lifetime of utter, many, many horrors. And I'm simply relating one of so many hundreds or whatever of times that this has been done. And we all have the ability to do this. So don't engage in people's stuff if they have something going on. Well, what happened? Thank you, got it. Don't say, well, do you see this doctor about that or that? Just very quietly, how did that affect you? The doctor told you had this or that, the other, and then, or you don't even use those words. Then, you know, it just, everything has to be clean in your mind. And the world will evaporate. That's what this message is about. Illumination is an openness. Stop believing in the world. Free your mind, and the rest will follow. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it.